Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. In this video, we're going to be talking about reading TXT and CSV files. We will be using OPENROWSET, bulk insert, XPCND shell, PARSENAME, and a string split. Here's a good example of the use of OPENROWSET. In this case, I have two select statements. One is directed to a text file, and the second one is directed to a CSV file. Whenever you use OPENROWSET, you need to use bulk and specify the full path and the file name with the extension. We're going to execute the two select statements and see the results. This information you see here came from the physical file. I'm going to show you the files as well. Let's look at sample text first. Yeah, there you are. If you pay close attention to this information, it's exactly the same information that came on the row. Now let's look at sample CSV. Exactly the same information. The way it is right now, it only shows one row per query. If we have a much bigger file, for example, let's try to see what we get by running myText, which is a file that has more information, and also SQL export, which is an export from a table that has 1,000 records. Let's see what happens. Let's put myText here. Let's put SQL export down here. Okay. If I run myText using the OPENROWSET, I'm going to see the same results, but in a single row. This is not very practical. Same thing happens with the CSV file. If I execute the OPENROWSET with CSV file, everything is going to be on a single row. Now I'm going to show you how to create a format file, which is basically what you need to see the information like a table. You need to format it and specify it as well. When it comes to creating format files, we have two choices. We can either do it manually or we can pull the structure from an existing table. In our case, we're going to pull the structure for the format file using an existing table. We're going to see the structure for the mytext.txt file. And we have ID, first name, last name, age, and country. And that's exactly the same structure we're going to create as a table. The table is going to be created on corporate data underscore is1 under a DBO schema with the name mytext. We don't need to put any information on the table. Just all we need is the structure. Same applies for the CSV file, in this case, SQL export.csv. Same structure, ID, first name, last name, email, gender, race group, hospital code, and car make. Let's create the table. And we're done. Now we need to execute the BCP command. BCP has to be executed from the command prompt, as you can see right here on my right. The way to execute it is by typing BCP, followed by database name, schema, and object name. In this case, we're going to create the format file for mytext. And we pass format null hyphen lowercase f, the full path where we're going to place our format file, followed by the name and extension, hyphen n to keep native format, hyphen s will specify the SQL Server instance. In my case, since I'm connected locally, I only put a period, and that will tell SQL Server I'm connected locally. Hyphen t means I have a trusted connection. Means that the Windows user has a trusted connection to the SQL Server instance and is allowed to connect. If that was not the case, I will have to provide hyphen capital U followed by the username and hyphen capital P followed by the password. Let's proceed and create our format file. Let's copy this script, paste it on the command prompt, and it's going to show here on this window once I execute it. And there it is. This is the same for the next table. Let's copy, click, paste, and run. Once we're done, we need to make some changes to the files. And the reason for that is that mytext, the TXT, and SQL export.csv are actually UTF-8 files. Let me get closer here and show you. I'm using Notepad++, and it will tell me this information here, but Notepad will also tell you that information as well. Let's verify my text. And that is correct. If that's the case with your file, you need to make some changes to the format file as well. You need to make 3 changes, actually. You need to change SQL encar to SQL car. You need to change the prefix length from 2 to 0. And also, this is mandatory, you need to add the commas in this case. And for the last column, add \r\n. We will proceed to do that now. Now that you were able to see the before and after with the modifications to the format file, there's one thing I want to correct here. And also, aside from SQL encar, the SQL int type must be changed to SQL car as well. As you were able to see, that was corrected on the format file as well. Now let's proceed and read the information from mytext.txt. This time we're going to use the format file. We specify that. We also tell the OPENROWSET command to use the first row as equals 2. That means the headers will not show as part of the information from the table that we're going to read. I say table, but it's not a physical table because we're reading directly from the file. Let's execute this. There it is. I have all information from the file. Let's do the same for the CSV. Same process. Specify the CSV file, the format file. The first row is going to be 2. And we execute this. And we can see our 1000 records from the CSV file as well. We will now see how to use bulk insert. For the purpose, we're going to create a temporary table. Temporary table is going to have the same structure as SQL export.csv file. Okay. The purpose of bulk insert is to bring data from a physical file to a table. The command is as follows. Specify bulk insert and the name of the table. This is a temporary table, but you could very well use a physical table if you wanted to. In fact, we're going to do an experiment on that. You need to specify the location of the CSV file. In this case, we're going to use the SQL export.csv file. Then you provide a with command. Below the with command, you have a plethora of options. Actually, you can go to this link that I provided here and see all of the options. I'm going to show you the main ones that you can use. First row equals 2, so we don't import the headers containing the information of the columns. Field terminator, where it's a comma, we're going to leave it as a comma. If it were a pipe, we'll have to provide a pipe or any other character that we use as field terminator. Row terminator, we can use \n or \r and \n. But if it were a file exported from an Ubuntu instance, we will need to provide 0x08. Batch size is the size of records that we're going to be importing. In this case, we had 250. Max errors is the maximum amount of errors you can allow up until it stops. And tab log creates a log on the table. Let's do the bulk insert process. And let's look at the temporary table. And there you have it, 1000 records. Now, I mentioned that we were going to do an experiment. And since the temporary table has the same structure as a previous table that we created, exactly this one, I'm going to copy the full name of the table, the database, schema, and table name, fully qualified object name. Instead of using the temp table, I'm going to provide a table. Okay. So make sure I'm going to check that the table is empty. Before I proceed, I'm going to select star, and it's empty. I'm going to run my bulk insert and check out my table. And there it is, 1,000 records on a physical table. XP shell will give us the ability to execute CND commands within SQL Server. It is a good and very recommended practice not to have that option enabled. For the purpose of demonstration, I'm going to enable it by using sp_configure. As you can see here, show advanced options, specify 1, reconfigure, then again sp_configure, xp shell, and 1. We're going to create a temporary table, and we're going to insert some data on the table by using the type command, which is a command you can run from the CMD. Then after that, we're going to disable our xp shell. Okay. I'm going to see the contents of a very specific file. The file is called mylist. Show you the contents of the file. The file has a list of roots, as you can see, 13 in total. And the command we're going to execute, which I'm gonna show you on a CMD window, because why not? So you have an idea of what's going to happen when I execute it from SQL Server. Okay, shows me the contents of the file. Now let's execute this whole code here, and then we'll look at the table. Okay, let's take a look at the table. And now I have the very same information that's on the file. I have it on a table. This is very useful for automation cases where you have a system that generates a file with information, and you can pick up that information from the file and put it on a table on a regular basis. Parsename and string split are two very important functions whenever you work with imported data to SQL Server. They have some differences, and we're going to point them out right now. But before we do that, we need to import some data. First, we're going to see an import from a file called cmdtest 4 columns and then cmdtest 5 columns. Let me show you the files so you can have a better understanding. cmdtest 4 columns has exactly 4 columns, as you can see, and cmdtest 5 columns has 5 columns. Basically the same information, just one additional column in the beginning. Now we're going to do an import for cmdtest 4 columns, and we're going to see how we manage that information using both functions. Okay, let's look at the table. There it is, just like the file. Just do a close up here. There you go, exactly like the file. Now we'll execute a parsename on that table and see the results. The results are now more table-like, as you can see. It looks very much like a normal table, even though we stored it in a single column with comma-separated values. We provide that information of comma-separated values here on the parsename function, as you can see, right here. This is the field delimiter right here. This is the aliasing of every column, and this is the ordinal position of every column. Let's take a look at string split, which will basically return the same information. And there it is, same information. Now let's take a look at importing the file that has the 5 columns, cmdtest 5 columns. Let's execute it here and here. Let's do a select on the table. And there it is. We have our 5 columns. They're all together, but we're going to split them. Okay. If we use parsename with 5 columns, it will not work. That is a limitation of PARSENAME. If I run it, it's going to just bring me back null values. For that, you need to run the string split. If we run string split, we'll be able to see that information. String split works with any information beyond the 4 columns. So whenever you do an import and you have more than 4 columns, you need to use string split. Additionally to what we just saw, we can use the string split function with a pivot table. Let's see the outcome of this query. And it's basically the same outcome as the previous query. And this will finalize the video. Would you like to hire me for your SQL questions and solutions? You can contact me on Fiverr, Upwork, or LinkedIn. To download a copy of the script used in this and other videos, please visit my repository on GitHub. Please like and subscribe. You can also leave a comment or message if you wish to do so. Thank you for watching.